Welcome. I'm Debbie Rosas, and you're listening to Get In. I'm the founder and the creator of the Nia technique. This is a practice that has been changing people's lives globally since about 1983. Why? Well, our approach to fitness includes health and well being. And I'm not just talking about physical fitness, I'm also talking about mental health, emotional health, and spiritual well being. I'm talking about the whole person. And our guest today, Lorri Donnahoe, who is recipient of the 2024 Spirit of Nia Award, knows very well firsthand what does it mean to be well in your body, mind, emotions, and spirit. Now, as Lorri described to me, she was raised in a very loving and a close knit family in Memphis, Tennessee. She describes herself as a shy child, a child who found confidence through storytelling and music. She earned a degree eventually in piano, and she spent 16 years teaching. Primarily, some of you may be aware of this, of the Suzuki method. And then, after moving frequently, like a lot of us do, we move with our partner somewhere or the other, right? Her husband had a forestry career, so she moved around. She eventually decided to transition into a caseworker. Now, if you know anything about the work that a caseworker does, it's heavy lifting. It's deeply emotional and very, very important work in the world. She has served at a state, a federal, and also in nonprofit roles to what? To take her knowledge and skills of the path that she's walked, the experiences she's had, to help others. She was initially drawn to movement for healing. And I think many of us can relate to that. A hurt shoulder, a pulled hamstring, needing to gain more cardiovascular fitness. But when I'm talking about healing, I'm not just talking about physical healing. Now, unexpectedly to Lorri, and this happens to a lot of Nia people when they come and do the training, she became a Nia teacher, a practitioner of this thing called the joy of movement, guiding others towards health, holistic fitness, and well being through movement. Now, if you can imagine, here's Lorri, and she's dealing with many, many misdiagnoses and lots of challenges associated. But she found Nia as an anchor that also taught her this body intelligence and wisdom that lived inside of her. She learned to listen to her body and trust the process of movement as medicine as part of the prescription for self healing. And this is what I want to say part of the prescription. She has been correctly diagnosed with bipolar II, and she continues to use Nia movement as a tool for self care, again, to support her prescription of what she needs to be healthy and well, and for her continued growth and transformation, body and life feeling better. Her journey has shown her how movement heals, how listening to your body is important, how developing a loving relationship with your body is key. And she's passionate about sharing her story with all of us and sharing the gift of Nia with others. Lorri, I am so excited. I could not think of anyone better to share this award with And what really stuck out in my mind was when you were signed up for a training and you called me and you said, I'm having a tough time. Can I postpone and take it another time? And I said, absolutely. I was so impressed with your ability to listen to your body, to know what you can and cannot do, and to take care of your body's needs. Even when you've put money on the line to take a course and the potential that, wow, maybe I could lose it, which would never happen in Neum. Lorri, welcome. And thank you so much for your courage to be here and share your story.
Thank you, Debbie. It's an honor to be here. I have I have received so much from the community of Nia, teachers training yourself, who also show me the spirit of Nia. So it's a real honor to be here.
Yeah, I think, when I talk about the spirit of something, it is that uniqueness that comes out. And what I love, and which can be disturbing for people, is how Nia can unearth and bring out a spirit that needs to be addressed, something that needs to be addressed physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. And that's the personal growth aspect of Nia training that I think is so fantastic. And it's also can be unnerving and take a lot of courage to be faced with things that maybe you didn't even know were there, right? Um, you know, I'm shocked at the mental health statistics in 2024, right? Approximately 23% of adults, and I'm talking about just the US, are experiencing some kind of mental illness in a given year. Now, from my perspective, after COVID, we all, and in today's political climate in the world, we all have some kind of PTSD. We're traumatized by the news. I know that I feel more traumatized by loud sounds. There's something about my nervous system that feels challenged to stay present and to stay calm. And then the fact that the adolescents between 12 and 17, that there's about a 20% group of individuals that are challenged. I happen to think it's probably higher, whether it's anxiety, social anxiety from social media, panic disorders, afraid to go to the mall, afraid to go to the school. And even now, I'm hearing that in some schools are taking away phones, which is making a child even more anxious, thinking that if a shooter came in a school, they would have no way to call. So, we live in such a different world. And I don't think any family is untouched by some kind of mental illness challenge, whether it's depression or bipolar, substance abuse. Um, and it's interesting they say that women are more likely than men to experience mental illness. Maybe it's because we feel things. We are more coded to really feel and address what's going on. The fact that supposedly racial ethnic minorities have higher rates, without access to mental health care, this really puts the humanity and the population of human beings in a really dangerous place. And suicide, a leading cause. How can it possibly be a leading cause of death? Well over 40,000 people each year dying. So mental illness is increasing. The good news is we're talking about it. The good news is that you are here, people like you who are courageous enough to tell your story. And that's really, I'd like to begin. I'd like to begin with asking you, were there any signs, even as a child, that you noticed or that your family noticed that you needed help?
I can't think of anything until I was 17. And I remember one day I could not get out of bed and I thought, what's wrong? But I couldn't wake up. I couldn't do anything. And now I look at that and I think I was exhausted. I was exhausted from the physical energy that it takes to maintain and look okay
Wow.
when you're not okay. And I was in the bed uh, for a couple of days until my mother said, if you don't get up tomorrow, we're going to the doctor. And of course, um, I got up. I think she and my father both just thought that I was tired. I was
Yeah.
always up reading and things like that. When I was in college, I do remember some really high uh, moods. And because I do have bipolar 2, my highs are not as extreme. My manias are smaller, but it's a rush. I miss it.
For our listeners that are unaware of bipolar 2 disorder, it's a condition characterized by alternating episodes of what Lori has shared. Uh, Elevated mood, increased energy, or what you might know of as high, a decreased need for sleep. I'm going to stay up. I'm going to do things. Impulsive actions that can last for days, and major depression as well. Low mood, loss of interest, fatigue. So you can see that contrast of high and low, and basically symptoms that can interfere with daily functioning, like Lori said, getting out of bed. Um, Lori, did you experience feelings of like exaggerated optimism and confidence at time as part of a high?
Certainly exaggerated optimism. Uh,
Yeah.
it's going to be wonderful. Um, and probably a little bit of the confidence too. I think that even though I'm comfortable speaking in a group or in front of a group of people, I was even bolder
Yeah.
uh,
Wow.
when I was having those little hypomania events. And fortunately, my hypomania has been pretty tame so that I never had any of the symptoms like full blown mania where people go through 5 credit cards or go through a gambling cycle. I've never had anything like that. I've been very fortunate. The the real issue for me has been the deep, deep depressions. And I often think about bipolar as a straight, you know, no one is a straight line. Everyone has up and downs. But I think about bipolar 1 way up there
Yeah.
and way down there. And bipolar 2, we climb up a little way, but when we fall hard. Or I do. And that's the thing to recognize that no one person's story will be the same.
Exactly.
Similar, but each person has their own chemistry and available health care.
Yeah. And
So,
that's why it can be so challenging to diagnose, and also so challenging to find the right medication, the right prescription. That's that personalization. And, in today's world where it's think positive, write down your positive thoughts to create manifest. You're not creating the right reality, those kinds of messages. And those kinds of messages also with sometimes the message, you need to increase your creativity and productivity. Come on, you're not doing enough, which is a sign of hypomania, right? I'm just going to do more and I'm going to produce more. Um, and I find that I've been caught up in that, in thinking I'm not doing enough and looking at, well, I'm going to get up an hour early so that I can write down my manifestations. When really what I need is that sleep. I've also experienced, a symptom of racing thoughts, racing speech out of nervousness and anxiety. Um, I've had impulsive behavior of feeling down and out and going shopping and buying something, thinking it was gonna be fixed. Now, I was never one, like you said, to jump into risky activities. But I think as human beings, sometimes it's hard to know, am I in balance or out of balance? How bad is my depression? So what was it that finally got you to say, okay, I really need to get this diagnosed? And how was it misdiagnosed?
I think one of the reasons my bipolar II is misdiagnosed initially was because I thought those little hypomania events were normal. Um, because because they weren't that extreme and they just felt so darn good. And uh the thing that bothered me was the really heavy depression. So I was initially diagnosed with depression. I will say that I tried everything I knew. I was already exercising and eating well and meditating and doing a lot of bibliotherapy, read lots of books about this. And when it came to medication, I thought, not going to do it because if I do it, I won't solve my problems. And so I went to therapy. And I am so grateful because I learned then that I had a lot of faulty thinking. And my therapist was really, I was a perfectionist. I had unrealistic expectations. And she helped me a lot with um, being more realistic. The problem was I couldn't get out of the depression. And she said, if you feel like this at our next appointment, I'm going to refer you to a psychiatrist.
Mhm.
And I would go home and I would do everything. And the next time I went back, I would say, yes, I'm better. I know. Uh, because I just didn't want to do the medication. And it
Uh-huh.
was after a Nia class, actually, that I came home and I was so happy after Nia class. I was so happy. It was a 6 a.m. class. I was so excited.
Wow.
I know. I returned, and so I went home to shower and go to my job. And I walked in, and my husband, who has always been so supportive, I cannot say enough, had breakfast and I was getting ready and I got in the shower and I just couldn't stop crying. And I was like, what's wrong? I just I just did my most favorite class in the world. I came home to a kiss and breakfast. You know, I I'm going to go to a job that I like and I can't stop crying.
Yeah.
And then I said, okay, I'm going to I'm going to do it. And I did. I told my therapist, and she referred me to a psychiatrist. She diagnosed depression because that's all I complained about. Um,
Right.
and I have, and put me on a small dose of Zoloft, an antidepressant, SSRI. And she said, this could take up to 4 to 6 weeks.
Right.
And I thought, wow, okay. But I did it. 3 or 4 days later, I was outside power washing the house and it was a big house. It standalone house and a garage that had 3 rooms attached. I didn't take a break. I went in, I washed everything in sight. My husband had never seen me do anything straight line in my life. He said, "Whatever it is, take it forever." And I have since learned that often someone who has bipolar, if they are given just an antidepressant, they can have, a hypomanic episode.
Uh-huh.
Um, because um, when I went back to the psychiatrist, it was like, yeah, it's great. She was a little bit surprised.
Yeah.
Uh, so it was after quite a while, probably a couple of years, and we were talking, and I said something about getting up and reading, and she was like, "You get up in the middle of the night?" And I was like, "Yeah, and I'll read and da 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 da." And she's like, "You never told me this." And I thought, whatever you grow up with, you think is normal. Whatever you live with, you think is normal until you look out into the world and learn. So at that point, um, she recommended a mood stabilizer, and she recommended lithium. And it was a dose way too far because I came
That's a
home.
tough one. That's a big one.
It is a big one. And I came home, I sat down on the sofa, and I said to my husband, "I am the most boring person
Yeah, it
in
was
the
too
world."
low. Too high, too low, right? And where's the perfect stimulation? We always talk about that in Nia. How much is too much? How little is too little? Because we need motility to move life force energy. And, for listeners who are unaware, major depression is a physical feeling of persistent sadness or a sense of emptiness, a loss of interest, even in your children, in people in your family, even activities you enjoyed. It can show up as changes in appetite, in weight, definitely difficulty in concentrating, making decisions, not even wanting to think in some ways, tremendous fatigue, and even suicidal thoughts or behaviors. And what I think what Lori you beautifully point out, as you say, over 2 years, through evaluation. And for anybody who is working with a healthcare provider, whether it be a mental health psychologist or a psychiatrist, details matter. Every little detail is important: physical, mental, emotional, spiritual. What you eat, how you sleep, when you have, do you have tremendous highs or lows, your ability to concentrate, not concentrate, at levels of agitation, and as Laura said, waking up in the middle of the night. All of those things help the healthcare provider evaluate and eventually then together, because it's teamwork, create an assessment and find a treatment. So it sounds like, continue the story. It sounds like after 2 years and your psychiatrist said, "You didn't tell me that." What happened?
Well, the lithium happened.
Yeah,
And
right.
I didn't I didn't think it was that odd
Mhm.
to wake up and read and go back to sleep. Um, now I understand a lot more. So when I notice little things, I do mention those to my psychiatrist and to my uh, therapist.
Mhm.
But I went on the lithium, which was way too much. I will back up just a little bit
Uh-huh.
because I was treated for depression for several years. And during that time,
Mhm.
an antidepressant worked for 12 to 18 months.
Okay.
Then it didn't work because I needed a mood stabilizer. And I would change medications. And at one point, in order to change medications, I had to completely go off what I was taking.
Wow.
And I can see this in my head right now. I sat down at the dining room table and I said to my husband, if I ever have to go through anything like this again, I won't make it. And I truly believed I would not make it. I was not going to hurt myself,
Uh-huh.
but I knew all I could see was living in our bedroom for the rest of my life. And that's pretty, when I hear myself say that, I'm like, that's pretty stark. I should have been, running down the streets going, help, help. Um,
Yeah.
and I think sometimes I was my own worst enemy in thinking, you should be able to fix this. You ought to be able to fix this. You've got everything. What do you have to be depressed about?
Right.
So, anyway, I finally had the lithium experiment, and uh, my psychiatrist moved. I got another psychiatrist and was with him until we left Texas. And uh, he he got me stable. And even though I was stable, he would have to tweak every couple of years,
Mhm.
maybe bump up the mood stabilizer or use a different mood stabilizer. So um, it was tough, but a couple of good things. One um, is that medication today is much better than it was 50 years ago.
Yeah.
And I do have a family history. My father was hospitalized in a psychiatric hospital and had electroshock. I can't remember the official name, but it was way too much. It was a dose too heavy.
Mhm.
And his mother was hospitalized for what they called melancholia.
Yeah. My goodness, I remember. Yep.
Yes. And I found out probably 5 years ago, this is something I did not know. This grandmother, my dad's mom, had a brother who committed suicide. And um, it was pretty stark. I don't know what, just for information, I guess, I found the obituary and it said that he was released from the psychiatric hospital and committed suicide by drowning. And they
Wow.
never do obituaries like that today.
What? No.
Uh, but,
Ah, privacy laws.
and I have had a couple of cousins commit suicide, and I think one was very heavily related to drug use, but still. And got myself off track. Oh, I had the a psychiatrist in Texas for a long time,
Mhm.
and when I got to Georgia 3 years ago, I had to change everything, and, um, the the psychiatrist I had did not think that I had bipolar, and, she started weaning me off of the mood stabilizer,
Okay.
and something that I did not think about at the time, prior to getting on a mood stabilizer, when I overdid it, I overtaxed myself, I got too anxious,
Mhm.
I would be physically sick, throwing up and physically sick, and it was, and I couldn't stop, dry heaves. I know this is unpleasant to discuss,
No,
but
it's the body talking.
the body was screaming for
Yeah,
something to happen.
yeah,
And, um, once I went on the mood stabilizers, that never happened. But, the absence of something, you don't always notice the absence of something.
exactly.
And when I was finally taken off all of the mood stabilizer, I got sick just like that again.
Wow.
And I got in touch with my psychiatrist immediately and told her, and she said, "Well, we better check out. You better go to your doctor and check and make sure it's not something else." And I thought, "No, I remember how that felt,
Yeah, you knew your body.
and I know." And and so I, started looking for another psychiatrist, but before I could get another psychiatrist and get adjusted, I th I threw up so hard and so violently that I got a hernia.
Oh, wow. Wow.
And I'm like, "So what? Now I've gotta get that repaired?" Um, and fortunately, I had the most wonderful surgeon. I have a wonderful doctor, and had a wonderful surgeon. It was smooth, no problems. Um, and that was it was after I had that surgery that I wrote and said that I was not able to do the training that I wanted to do.
Mhm.
Um, I was I was exhausted and I was not yet stable.
Mhm.
And I knew, and it wasn't just physical or mental, it was the whole ball of wax.
Yeah,
I did not feel physically able to do it mentally, emotionally. My spirit was hurting.
yeah.
So, and you were, you were amazingly kind, and Sam was also very kind. And so I'm hoping to get started. I think it's in August this year. So I'm looking forward to that. Um, I will share one thing before I talk, or you may have some more questions about the mental health. I was going to talk about how Nia was a part of my recovery.
Absolutely, absolutely.
I think,
Please do. Yeah.
yes, I think that I was on the path and primed for Nia to find me, because after all of my bibliotherapy, now we're going back a couple of decades, I remember thinking to myself, you know what? And this is before I had any medication.
Mhm.
I said, you know what? If I don't do something, my mind, my emotions are going to make me physically sick.
Mm.
I just had that feeling.
Yeah.
And um And I always say that Nia found me because I was at the gym at 6 a.m. and a woman walked in and said, "Did you know that we have a 6 a.m. movement class?" And I said, "No." And I was, I was on the floor stretching out the legs. And she said, "Have you ever taken a Nia class?" And I said, "No." And she said, "Would you like to take a Nia class?" And my thought was, she will never leave. She will never go away. You know, I went, I loved it. I have never, I, I, I look at it as one of the best things that ever happened to me in my life.
Mm.
And I decided to take a training the next year, not with the intention to teach, but because moving helped me feel so good. I wanted that. I was just aching for it all the time. I thought nothing could be better than a week of movement at Lake Austin. Oh,
Right.
right. Yes.
Lake Austin Spa, I remember. What a beautiful place that was, right.
Beautiful. And I did come home. I was exhausted because the trainings are intense.
Yeah.
And I said, I'll never teach." But we only had 2 teachers in town, and one of them moved, and the other one said, "Lori, if you don't sub, we won't have class." And at that point, I thought, what is bigger, my insecurity or my desire to have a class? And it
Mm.
was a no-brainer, my desire to have class. And I loved it. I found that by teaching, I learned even more about Nia and how to listen to my body. I loved seeing people smile in class.
Right.
I loved, well, I was a little worried when they came in and said, "Oh, I almost didn't come." But then they left. They said, "Oh, I'm so glad I came." And um, so I gained a lot of inspiration from the teachers in my town, from the students. I continued training. And the more I listened to my body, the more I could tune in and say, okay, I'm tired not because I'm physically tired. I'm tired because my mind is out of balance. I'm chemically unbalanced. That doesn't mean that I have to change anything right now, but I need to give my brain a break. I need to go to bed earlier.
Yeah.
Um, the emotions. My body, and this is from, I'm trying to remember which training. It might have been the art of sensation when we would walk and say, "Body, you know, where am I?" Scale 1 to 10.
Right. Assessing what are you sensing? Uh-huh.
And I I was doing that one time by myself, and without thinking, I said, "Mind, how are you doing today? Emotions, how are you feeling today?" It was it was like the check-in with my body had always told me what area needed attention, but I never thought to ask that area. What is it specifically you want to tell me? If I'm articulating that um, in a way that makes sense.
Beautifully, beautifully articulated. Perfect.
So that's, um, I see my body as such a gift. And now I look at how I can give back to my body. It's a reciprocal relationship. My body is always going to be there for me. Am I always going to be there for my body? I want to be. I'm learning to be. It's easy to get distracted. And COVID and the political situation are certainly, disturbing factors. But I I don't think I can fully express how grateful I am that Nia came into my life and I learned about the body and the body's way and how it helps me maintain an even line. I still I still need medication.
Uh-huh.
And bipolar II is cyclic. And I had I had kind of a down turn in the fall, not deep.
Mhm.
Um, I do have to say that I had a revelation after all of these years. I would get through a depressive cycle and I'm like, "Whew, that's over." And thinking, okay, clear sailing. And I realized last fall, you know what? I've been thinking about these episodes as one and done. And that's not how bipolar two works. So uh, I'm grateful for that recognition. Maybe my mind wasn't able to accept that until now. I
Mm.
don't know. But I thought, okay. And it took a long time with the depressive episodes because initially I thought, I'll never feel better. And after time, I had a record of feeling better. And I could say, okay, I really feel badly. Yeah, it feels like I won't feel better, but I know I will because I always have.
Yeah.
So that was also a learning curve. The mind is an amazing thing. And so now I've had another epiphany that yes, I will feel better, but it could happen again. So, having, being able to talk about it is is it is kind of therapy itself.
Mhm.
Um, and I have not shared with a lot of people because I am always um worried, oh, what would people think? Oh, they wouldn't treat me the same. Oh, they would think they couldn't talk to me anymore because they would be afraid they'd upset me and um, all of those things. And some of the first places that I've said anything has been in our breakout groups with trainings and in the pods. So I feel more comfortable. I'm in a group at my fellowship, um, and I have shared that with them. And I think your um, statement about bringing awareness to this is critical. And I my heart breaks for people who do not have health care. I have health care.
Yeah.
I have a supportive husband. I have dear friends who are aware of what I deal with. Um, I've had up and down experiences with treatment, but I I have access, and I just my heart breaks. I see so many people that are not getting the help that they need. And when it comes to mental health, when you're diagnosed with a mental illness, it may take medication. It typically you need that
Uh-huh.
therapy, and you need to understand how it works. And some diseases, some mental health conditions will not allow your mind to understand that.
Yeah.
Um, Schizophrenia is one. Uh, Nothing's wrong with me, it's somebody else. Or I've seen people with anxiety who can't get outside without medication.
Yeah.
And then they get frustrated, so they stop taking their medication.
Yeah.
And it it takes education. It took me a long time. And I think we need to throw more emphasis, not just to health. Nia is not just a movement technique. Nia addresses mind or body, mind, emotions, and spirit, that it also is a lifestyle. It is a lifestyle so that you learn to take what what you have been given in class into the day and tap in. How am I feeling today? But also, it when I think of the Nia lifestyle, I also think about um, how I have learned to become a better communicator.
Mhm.
I'm a better listener. I've always been pretty good at that, but even better. And Nia is a beautiful community. Um, I feel connected to people literally around the world since COVID and Zoom hit.
Yeah.
Um, and my classes, uh, you know, come early, stay a little bit late.
Mhm.
We have public service announcements. Who's playing at the Foundry this weekend? So I just, I don't know if I can express my gratitude for this knowledge and for this relationship that I have cultivated with my body. And my body continues, no matter what I do or where I am, it is right there. And it is saying, I could give you a few tips if if you're interested. Um, so I am so grateful that it is a tool, and it is an anchor. It's an anchor for me. And I this is part of my learning curve in learning about uh, being depressed. I was going to teach one day, and I was depressed. I don't think I was on a mood stabilizer yet. And I walked out, I walked to the car, and I said, and this story has a happy ending, so don't be
Good.
sad.
Oh, good.
I said to myself, "Oh gosh, you are such a fake. You are so depressed. You don't want to do anything. How can you go teach? How can you go to a class of people and help them feel better when you feel like the pits?" And I went and I taught, and as always, I felt a lot better. Somehow, when I'm there, connecting and helping them connect to their body becomes the focus. And so that gives my my mind of depression, it gives it a little bit of break. But I came home and I was driving home and I was like, how did that work? And I realized I am not a fake. I said to myself, you are not a fake, because even though you were really depressed and you're still feeling kind of depressed, you know and believe that moving is key. You totally believe in the wisdom of the body, and you totally want everyone in the world to have that in their lives, to tune in to the gift that they have.
Yeah.
And I thought, wow, okay, I'm not a fake. And so that just carried me through until I got better stabilized. So that was a wonderful, wonderful revelation to me, because I just felt so down.
You so beautifully have shared the story of a body and life. It is something that is cyclical. It is something that is always moving forward. It is something where we ride the waves. We have a high, we have a low, we have peaks, we have valleys, we have plateaus, as George Leonard would say, where you think maybe nothing's happening. But when we're on a plateau, things are stabilizing. They're organizing themselves in a new way. And some of that reorganization, we may have privilege to sensing, recognizing, acknowledging changes, but other times it's so subtle. And with any physical, mental, emotional, or spiritual challenge or illness that we're dealing with, as Lori pointed out, do you have a support system? Do you have access to adequate health care? So very important. Um, do you understand the best that you can about the challenges that you're dealing with? Right? Has it been explained? Can you manage what you're being asked to do? Even the medication. Can you manage the education, the medication? Can you manage the movement you're being asked to do, or the meditation, or the breathing exercise, etc.? And do you find meaning? And all of these 3 words that I'm talking about come from the beautiful work of Aaron Anastovsky called Salutogenesis. And rather than focusing on disease, he focused on health ease and talked about the health ease continuum, that no matter what illness we have, whether we're in the process of living, we're all in the process of dying, right? But on that path, wherever we are, there is a way that we can feel better. There is a way that we can say, I'm okay, and that we don't have to say, I'll be okay once the depression goes away, but that we can be, as Lori so beautifully said, we can be in relationship. We can learn to manage our symptoms. We can live fulfilling and meaningful lives. And as Lori so beautifully said, we don't have to feel like an imposter. Because even when we think we're hiding something, and I always love this, I talk about this in training. Somebody says, "How are you, Debbie?" I go, "Oh, I'm great." And my voice goes up about 5 octaves. And I hear that and I go, "Well, that's not true." And then I start to talk about how I really feel. And all of a sudden, my true, authentic voice drops in. And, anything chronic, if you know anybody that lives with anything chronic, it requires ongoing treatment and monitoring. And that monitoring requires sensitivity. We call body literacy in Nia or sensory IQ wisdom, the ability to observe subtle, moderate, and acute sensations and know that everything carries meaning. And when you're working with healthcare providers, as even if you think it's not important, it's important. And documenting and writing down how you feel with the medication and how you feel in the morning, noon, at night, how it's affecting your sleep. All of these things are so very, very important. And I think it's unrealistic of the world to tell us that our life should be happy all the time. I know that I've even questioned when I say to Nia, follow the path of pleasure. Well, you know what? You can't have the pleasure without the pain, right? You're going to have discomfort. It's one of the primal voices, the two voices of the body, pain and pleasure. Pain's a teacher. It tells us that we need to adapt. We need to do something different because when the body is left on its own, to its own accord, it will move toward anything so that it can feel better, even keeping ourselves in bed for 2 days. It'll stop us in some way. And I think it's important to know that there is help available. There are suicide prevention hotlines. There are resources that are available in communities that make it possible to have someone to talk to. There are even, now on your phone, you can get positive messages. But I want us all to remember that there's a big difference between a positive thought and a truthful thought. And when you're dealing with a mental health struggle, sometimes even what you think is rational needs another perspective. Somebody to shine a light on it and say, "Well, this is what I see." Because as Lori said, sometimes we can't even see it. We can't even think rationally or logically about something. In today's world, Lori, with social media, and I certainly, haven't have been attacked. Nia's been attacked. The work's been attacked. Um, it's a challenge to stay focused on my truth, and my truth is exactly what you just shared. And anybody will tell you in these podcasts, I usually am interrupting more and asking questions, but I found it necessary to just be silent and receive your message. And it just validated why you are the recipient of the Spirit of Nia award for me. And how one of the things I'm so proud that I'm just so proud that Nia does. And that is that it is accepting of people that come from all walks of life with all kinds of abilities and needs and life challenges. And yet the movement itself of Nia welcomes everybody. It invites everybody to drop into their own body. And that's where I said oftentimes something will pop out. And it could be so easy to say, Nia made me feel bad. I was, you know, traumatized by this or that. And in today's world, I think it's so important that we're very, very careful of projection, very, very careful of language that we use, and also realize that on the same pathway, there could be two very opposing realities and experiences that could exist exactly at the same time, which is why you can have somebody walk out of a Nia class and they're crying and they don't know why they're crying. And you can have somebody else walk out and they're laughing hysterically. We are emotional beings. We are very, very delicate. And an imbalance, a hormonal imbalance, chemical imbalance affects our mind and emotions. You know, it's easy when we break a leg to put a cast on and heal the bone, right? But the kind of healing that we're talking here, this is a healing of life force energy. And that life force energy affects our tissues, our behavior, our actions, our thoughts. And it takes such courage to face what you have faced, Lori. I am so honored and so deeply, deeply touched by your willingness to share this. And I would only hope that as people in the Nia community hear this, they don't treat you differently. They treat you with the respect that you deserve, with a sense of honor to be in your presence as a teacher. Because this is exactly what I feel. And
Thank you so much.
I can't thank you enough, Lori. And I look forward to the continued journey of dancing through life with you.
I I am I am ready. I'm ready to receive.
All righty. Well, let me ask you about this. How, if somebody wants to get in touch with you, how can they get in touch with you?
I am on Nia now,
Okay.
and um, and my Gmail. I'm happy to give that. If somebody wants to reach out and send me an email, I'm happy to give that.
Okay. What is that Gmail?
It's L.E. Donnahoe, which is DONNAHOE at gmail.com. LEDONNAHOE at gmail.com.
Awesome. Thank you. I would imagine you
This has
might get
been
a
a
few
treat.
people.
Well, this has been a treat, Debbie, and um, everyone's journey is different and everyone's journey is special.
Yeah.
And I'm just grateful that I am grateful that Nia found me so that it could be an anchor for me as I navigate through life.
Well, I speak for Nia. She's grateful that your voice gives voice to her gift. So I'm thrilled. All right. Well, everybody, thank you so much for joining us today. And again, if you'd like to find out or contact Lorri directory, it's LEDONNAHOE at gmail.com. And if you'd like to find more about me, please visit my online magazine. I'm so proud of the articles and the information that I share there, Awakening Body and Life at debbierosas.com. You can sign up and receive all kinds of body and life inspiring articles. You can find me on Facebook by searching Nia, on Twitter and Instagram at Nia Technique, and on nianow.com. And if you're interested in experiencing movement to feel better, you can go to Nia On Demand and receive 2 weeks free. There's workouts, podcasts, meditations, all kinds of practices and experiences at your fingertips so that you can begin to feel better anywhere, anytime. And remember, reach out if you're feeling concerned about your mental health and well-being. And don't forget, I don't think there's any better time for us to get into our body and get into community connection than right now. Thanks very much for joining me, and I'll see you next time.